Welcome to the New World Order Showcase Podcast. Your host, Jill Hart, the coach's Alchemist. Couldn't be more excited to have you join us today. On this podcast, we celebrate the champions of change, the up-and-coming life, health and transformational coaches who are fearlessly stepping forward to make a difference in the world. Get ready for inspiring stories, practical tips, and powerful moments that will motivate you to make a positive change in your life and those around you. We're happy to have you join us on this incredible journey as we dive into the world of life, health, and transformational coaches who are lighting up the path towards a better tomorrow.
Hi, and welcome to the New World Order Showcase podcast. Today we have with us Traci Bateman. Traci is a life, health, and transformational coach. Actually, she's a transformational life and health coach. I'm so used to saying it the other way.
All good.
Managed to mess that up. She is also the creator of Bliss Yoga Spa. She believes an abundant life is within reach and helps people forge a path to achieve their aspirations, cultivate resilient habits, and embrace life to the fullest. Welcome to the show, Traci. It's really nice to have you here.
Thanks so much. Lovely to be here. Thanks, Jill.
So you've got a story and you've been an entrepreneur forever. And tell us all the stuff. Where did you start?
Well, I've had so many journeys. I guess I'll backtrack a little bit. One of the real reasons that I got into coaching was during COVID. I found that people were kind of giving up on themselves. And I saw, being in the wellness business for so long, I saw an opportunity to really capitalize on this. But my story kind of goes back a little bit further. I lost my mom to breast cancer when I was 14 years old. So she had been diagnosed at age 24 and was given 2 years to live with these two young kids. And she managed to live 8 years. So kind of those formidable years of my life were spent watching my mom die, for lack of a better term. And so, from the ages of 15 on, I decided that I was going to not die of cancer. I was going to figure out how to live my best life. And, it started with a lot of really different kinds of modalities, from nutrition to alternative medicine to, you name it. At 15 to 20 years old, I'm kind of delving into these alternative methodologies. And I've always followed through with that, but then started a couple of businesses, got married, got divorced, moved cities, started another business, went back to school. And I kind of found throughout my whole life, particularly not having a mom, I did things the hard way and not the smart way. And, I had to basically teach myself everything from how to put makeup on to relationships to how to maintain a house. And there was no internet back then. This was in the 80s. So, I did a lot of research and, it sounds kind of cliche, but I really did work harder, not smarter. And so, fast forward through all these businesses and life experiences and divorce and marriage and moving. And, after COVID, and when people started kind of giving up on themselves, I'm like, oh my gosh, people need to invest in themselves some more. And they need to figure out that they have a lot to give to this world. And maybe all these things that I learned over the last 40 years are things that I can impart knowledge with people for. So I went back to school again and got 4 coaching certifications. And, through my wellness business, I've kind of been coaching a team of 40 women for the last 10 years. So I've been doing it informally, but I wanted just to have that piece of paper and that formal education to say, yeah, this is how you coach people. And so got the coaching certifications and have just kind of jumped off that ledge since then.
That's an inspiring story for sure.
Well, thank you.
I can remember back in the 80s too, when, you just had to figure things out and they weren't always intuitive. And if you were a little bit not part of the herd, trying to find information was really difficult. I remember having my first child in the 80s, and my mom and I were estranged at the time, and I had no idea
Right.
anything about birth, about raising kids, about anything about anything having to do with that. Because, my sisters were close in age and we moved around a lot and we didn't have an extended family. And just the information wasn't there. And so people don't realize how great the internet is and how much
Oh,
it provides connection and information. And I get it. Not everything you hear on the internet's the truth, but what is truth anyway?
well, and I think that's part of the process too, is I made a lot of mistakes. And, at the time I was embarrassed of these mistakes and I was ashamed. And as I've kind of dealt with them over the years, I'm like, well, that's how you learn and that's how you get better. And so, I'm actually quite thankful in all these years. I'm thankful for the mistakes because it wouldn't give me the experience I have to go from now. And it wouldn't give me the opportunities to be able to relate to people and what they're going through.
Yeah. And that whole shame and embarrassment thing, that played such a big part in our lives for so long because we always thought we were supposed to be perfect, but nobody starts out perfect in the beginning. I mean, you don't.
Well, and as an eldest child, I had that perfection syndrome. I had a very hardworking German father that was all about, all you do is work, 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 work. And so then I meet my second husband and he's all about, let's play. I'm like, what's play? I don't do play. And so that was a really different dynamic for me as well, to go from this very lateral way of thinking to, no, we're gonna enjoy our lives a little bit. And so that was a big wake up call too. And then for me, part of it too was because I had this really weird affinity with not dying and preventing cancer and nutrition and osteopathy and Reiki and acupuncture, I didn't really fit in. And so, as again, that maturity and that age has kind of gone, I don't really care if I don't fit in. This is the stuff I love and I'm going to get knowledgeable on it. And as I've kind of embraced it and started talking about it, it's shocking the number of people who are, they're on that same page and they're like, oh my God, I don't even want to talk to you about this. So it's so refreshing to have these conversations. And so that's been really an interesting part of it too. And that's, again, part of this coaching and be able to tell people that I get you. I get the weirdness. I've been there.
Yeah, and we're all weird.
Right? And we just got to embrace that and realize that there is no real normal, and don't try to fit in these boxes that society try to dictate for us, because they're not real, and you're never going to be happy trying to fit into those.
No, you're not. And I think the only reason that we have these boxes is so that we can be stacked and put in the corner. Break out of your box, baby. It's
Absolutely. I
it's
so
what you
agree.
were came here for, and the world needs your uniqueness and the
Yeah,
things that you have to offer the world. You came here to share that. Don't hide in the box.
I agree. I totally agree.
So, how do you do your coaching? How does that look?
You know what? Generally, I try to encourage clients to book in for my 12-week session. So I call it the 12-week total transformation. And we can do everything from I want to lose weight to, I've had clients who want to try to start a new career, or they've had their kids have left home and they don't know what to do with themselves and they've lost this identity. So our 12-week coaching sessions, I think, are the best way. I've done some one-offs and there's some success, but by the time a client has developed that rapport with me and that trust, it takes a few sessions to get there. And so every week we are, hang on 2 seconds. Sorry, I've got dogs in here.
Yeah,
Every
no
week is
worries.
about the wins. So we celebrate the wins, then we celebrate the challenges. We have new information every week. We want to talk about every week we have a new topic or a different framework that we go through to kind of break down some of the barriers, or building great habits, things that we all kind of know but we don't always think about. So every week we kind of go through that, and then we have an action item every week. So I'm here to hold people accountable for the things that they're saying to themselves and saying to me, And then every week we kind of go through these. And by the end of the 12 weeks, it's just the changes and the dynamics of these clients that I've seen have the transformations are incredible. I've had one client that went from, Traci, COVID was hard. My work is hard. My life is hard. My marriage is hard. My kids are hard. Everything's hard. To at the end, she had lost 45 pounds. She had a smile on her face. She had the confidence, and people were coming up to her going, "Oh my God, who are you?" And so anyways, the general gist of that question was the 12-week session is definitely what I love to work on the most.
So is it one-on-one or is it group?
It's one-on-one. This is what I love. I love diving into the deep conversations. I love the one-on-ones. I can facilitate groups, and I've done a few masterminds and some webinars, but ultimately I love the connection because, again, I didn't have any connection growing up. I didn't have a network. I didn't have a mom. I didn't have a sister. I didn't have any females in my life. So when I can connect on that deeper level on one-on-one, that's my jam.
Yeah, I love that. So are your coaching sessions like an hour, hour and a half?
Yeah. We
does
kind of
that
say
look?
45 minutes, but I think almost all of them go an hour or more because we tend to have so much stuff to talk about.
I know. And when you get on a call with somebody, an hour just like evaporates.
It flies by. We say it every time I have a call. And what's beautiful is because I have the spa, I'm able to do some coaching in person as well. So we do have that, which again, still it just goes nuts.
So where are you and where is your spa located?
I'm in Canada. So this is Edmonton, Canada, Alberta, Canada. So we're kind of one of the most northerly cities of North America. So yeah, it's quite a small town. It's a city in Canada, but it's not that metropolitan. I'll say that much.
Okay. Okay. So people could actually come and work with you in person if they lived near you.
Absolutely. What we have here, and it's interesting, we actually literally just changed the name from Bliss Yoga Spa to Bliss Medi Spa and Integrated Wellness. So the spa itself is focusing a little bit more on medical aesthetics, lasers, injectables, but also bringing that integrated wellness in. So I've got IV pods, I have an acupuncturist, I have a Reiki practitioner, I have a nutritionist, I have me, there's another coach that wants to come on. And then of course we do the yoga as well.
Oh, that's really exciting. So it's kind of a combination of both, but you're able to help people everywhere with the one-on-one coaching. And what do you actually help them achieve?
Pretty much anything. I've had people just say, I just need to find myself again. I've had people, I kind of like this concept of transition. So I've had women who are 60 years old and their kids have left home and they don't know who they are anymore. They don't have their own identity. So I think that's been a lot of it. I've had some transitions with work, changing jobs, leaving a job, starting a new job. I've had divorce, how do you start your life over again? I've had business clients who are starting another business and that confidence of being able to build that business up again. So, I think transitions is a big part of it as well. Where people are going. So I kind of help people obviously just achieve their goals, like provide accountability and be their biggest cheerleader. Because I didn't have a cheerleader growing up. So I want to be their cheerleader.
Do you help them actually form a vision for their future?
Well, we always set goals. That's kind of our first session. And one of the things, there's actually 3 things that we do in the first sessions, which I just love. Goal setting, which I think is super important. So we kind of do a 30, 60, 90-day goals, what we're going to work on, but some future goals as well. We do core values, because I think that core values make your decision-making so easy. So if we can kind of summarize down to 2 or 3 or 4 core values, it helps people again determine that identity and see where they want to head to. And then the third thing I always work on is clear the clutter. And it sounds kind of cliche, but when you can clear the clutter in your space, in your home, in your closets, in your kitchen, you're clearing the clutter out of your brain and you're making space for new information, new ways of thinking. And it's such a metaphor, but it's worked for all of my clients. I had one client, she's like, I can't go into my office. I said, okay, that's the only thing you're going to work on for this week is clearing your office. Sure as heck, she cleaned her office that day, did 5 emails that she'd been putting off, contacted 3 clients that she hadn't done. And it was just that ability to focus off that first session that was just crazy.
It is so interesting to me how much clutter in your environment affects your mental ability to make decisions, to take action. It just like it's like this chain that's around you, and all you hear
And
is,
it's
you
distracting.
need to deal with me, you need to deal with me. And it's so loud, it drowns everything else in your life out.
Well, it's kind of the shoulds, right? I should be doing this. I should be doing that. No, let's just do it, get it over with. And it's funny, one of the sessions that we do is a procrastination quiz. And sometimes we just like, I'm this obsessive idealist, and I will procrastinate on things until I know I have a specific amount of time that I can get something done. And usually I think it's going to take 3 or 4 hours, and it takes me 15 minutes. And so I think a lot of people have that as well. And that's part of that clearing the clutter, is they don't want to start it because they think it's going to be so huge. But once they actually get into it and find out it's not that intimidating, it's not that horrific, it's so empowering.
I have a story about a time when I was young. I must have been like 10 or 11, but my appendix almost burst, and we lived in Japan, and I had emergency surgery. And so it was back in, it's probably the 60s. That was that long ago. Um, and they kept you in the hospital for a really long time back in those days. So I was in the hospital, and the nurse came in and she wanted to give me a shot. Like, no, just let me wait till after I eat. I just didn't want the shot. And and I should have just let her give me the shot, because the whole time I kept thinking, the shot's coming, the shot's coming, the shot's coming. And it made such an impression on me that, I mean, I remember it to this day, and it's like 50 years later. So
Yeah. Isn't that crazy what our brains are, what they can stop us from doing, but also what we're capable of doing.
we can create our own realities. That's why I was asking you
We
about the
do.
vision. You know,
We actually do create our own realities.
and if you have the picture of what reality you want to actually have around you, how you want to vision it, you're more likely to achieve it, because your brain just like, it works on overdrive to make it happen for you.
Absolutely. It's so powerful. We just have to harness it better.
Yeah. But when you allow it to go off into the weeds, where it's like, procrastination is the weeds to me. And it's just like, you could make little things huge, monstrous projects, when they're really still just little things. I used to call it making moles, or making mountains out of molehills.
100%. I totally agree.
So when you're working with people and over the 12 weeks, is there like an ability to continue working with you after that? Are they usually done?
Absolutely. As a matter of fact, it's funny, 2 of my clients signed up for a second 12-week session, but the one client did it every other week. So we got 6 weeks, or 24 weeks out of it.
Mhm.
My other client moved it to once a month. So she got a whole nother year. She's like, I'm just not ready to leave you yet, Traci. She wanted that ability to the accountability for that going on. So yeah, there's lots of options. We can do 45-minute check-ins. We can do a whole nother 12-week session. I'm actually working on a couple of online courses to be creating, so that I can create that. So if they want to do some other, work on specific stress management or procrastination specifically, I'm developing some courses that people can work on after that.
And those would be do-it-yourself, sort of self-paced
Yeah, they'd
courses.
be online modules that are, videos, so they can do it that way.
Yeah, that sounds really exciting. So tell me a little more about your spa, because I'm curious what you do there.
Well,
And what are injectables?
okay,
As you
so
know,
first off, injectables,
don't like needles.
they are Oh, you know what? It's crazy. Injectables are Botox, basically. So Botox and Dysport, there's a bunch of, they're called neuromodulators. So, you put in your forehead and it stops the wrinkles from so forming. That the neuromodulators, they dull the nerve endings so that you can't move those muscles. So it's not anything permanent. It lasts about 3 to 4 months. You do it kind of forehead, around your eyes. There's different areas you can do it. And then the other injectable is filler. So hyaluronic acid that's injected into your face. And it's, as we age, we lose volume and we start to sag a little bit. So you can put some of the filler, like I've got a little bit in my under eyes, and there's a lot of people do lips, and there's a lot of injectables that are done poorly. So people look like they are very fake and they got a lot of stuff going on. But when you have a good injector, it just looks like you're refreshed. And so that's a big part of it. I have 4 nurses who do all that. So that's a lot of fun. But the spa was born out of an opportunity that we saw for a retreat. So, Edmonton is in northern Canada. There's not a lot of places you can go to just kind of chill out and pretend you're in Mexico or LA on the beach. Like, we just don't have that. So we started with my husband was in the grocery business and he sold his last grocery store, and we're kind of like, well, what are we going to do now? This was 11 years ago. And my brother was actually in school taking an entrepreneurship course. We were all into hot yoga. He's like, well, maybe you should start a hot yoga studio. So I'm like, oh, that's not a bad idea. But if we're going to do hot yoga, we should do massage. Well, if we're going to do massage, we should do a whole spa. If we're going to do spa, we should do medical spa. And it just, it grew to this 8,500 square foot facility that is, and we literally call it your local retreat without having to go anywhere. So we do all the regular spa services, facials, massages, waxing, pedicures, all that stuff. And then we have the Medi Spa. So laser hair removal, skin rejuvenation, scalp hair regrowth, that kind of stuff. And then we have the cosmetic injectables that I just kind of spoke about as well. So it's kind of, then we have the whole integrated wellness side. So it's inside and out. So, it's a judgment-free zone where you can come in and do whatever makes you happy and don't worry about what anybody thinks. If you want to have a nip in it, well, we don't do anything surgical, but we do have, a cellulite machine. So if that bugs you, deal with it. If you want inner peace and you want to go meditate, do that. There's no judgment. We just want people to feel good about themselves.
That sounds like an amazing.
It's pretty special, I have to say.
Don't you love how when you become an entrepreneur, it's kind of like that story, if you give the mouse a cookie?
Yeah. I'm a serial entrepreneur. I've had my first business when I was 18 years old in golf accessories business. And then I was in IT, I was in marketing, I was in interior design. I just don't think I could ever work for someone again, as hard it is. And, owning your own business is hard. Like, I'm on 24/7. There is no downtime. I literally have to physically leave the country to have downtime. And even then my staff are like, Traci, why are you texting us? What's like, just relax. I'm like, I can't. I feel guilty for leaving you guys. But yeah, it's hard.
It is hard. You become unemployable. I've tried to have jobs and it's just like you're just doing it all wrong.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too, right? Like, that experience is something you can't buy. You have to, it's a different level of knowledge.
You just have to walk through it yourself. And yeah, I think people that are serial learners, like you sound like you're a lot like I am, in that it's like there's so much that you can learn and explore and do. And I was just like, how can you just like stay in one spot?
Yeah, that's me. It's funny you say that because I'm actually registered for, I'm taking a course right now on online courses, how to create them. I am registered for a how to coach through menopause in January. So that's a big one for me because menopause, that transition again is so important. And it was such an interesting struggle for me that I really want to be able to coach on that. So I'm taking a course on that in January. I want to take a holistic nutrition course to add to it so that I can actually be certified to give people that nutritional advice that I'm kind of giving already. So yeah, love learning. It's a really integral part of my person and my core values.
Yeah, yeah. So I know you have an offer that you give people who visit your website. You want to talk about that a little bit?
Right now I have one, it's just called Stress Busters. And it's, again, it's not stuff that we don't know, but sometimes you just need it laid out for you. So I have that on my website. I'm actually in the process of building a new website where I have some planners. I have a 30, 60, 90-day planner that you can download as a PDF. But the Stress Busters is the one right now that I have available. I also have another one that is available somewhere on my website, just on what working with a life coach is about. Because some people don't understand, I've been to therapy. What's the difference between therapy and coaching? And there's just such a massive difference in terms of coaching being your cheerleader and being that support network and have that consistent accountability. And so, I have that one as well on my website.
Awesome. We'll make sure that people get the link to that so that they can pick it up, because everybody needs help with busting stress in their lives.
Right? Yes, definitely.
One of those things that it's like clutter. And clutter causes stress, but when you don't have the tools to deal with it, then it gets overwhelming quickly.
It does, and it's not that hard, right? It's sleeping well, it's good sleep hygiene, it's drinking water, it's exercising, it's eating good food. It's not rocket science, but sometimes we kind of forget. And even me, it's like, I've had a bad day, I'm going to go straight for that chocolate. Well, you know what? That's not helping. Have some fruits and vegetables, have something that's, a little more nutritious. And we all do it, but we kind of get into that instant gratification. I just want something that's going to make me feel better now, but it's not helping us in the long term.
Yeah. And it's when you're under stress, it's really hard to remember what you should do unless you practice when you're not in stress. It's like,
that's it, right? And that's part of the thing too, is it building good habits. Brendan Burchard is such a guy on the habits, right? And that it's interesting.
Yeah, and by building habits, you're more likely to implement the tools that you need when you need them, because when your house is
when
on
you're not
fire,
in that right mind, right?
Yeah, and it becomes an automatic response rather than what should I do? I remember when I'm really big into like essential oils and more natural remedies when people get sick around me. But for the longest time, the kids would get sick and I would be like, all that would go out the window. Like, here's the Tylenol.
Right? Yeah, the stress of it is just like, I need something that's going to act fast. And we all get into that instant. It's not an instant gratification. It's an instant response, right?
Result.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's building confidence that these tools are actually going to help you when you need them. You don't have to resort to that other stress response that you normally like. Just like, if your normal response when you're really stressed out is to start yelling at people, then breathing isn't your first thought. And if you can practice that while you're not stressed, and you're not going to just like blurt out things that you don't want to blurt out, but you're in the habit of doing anyway, then when you are in that pressure zone, then you're more likely to think about, I could just breathe.
And breathing is a really good example, right? Because we do it automatically, but so many of us don't breathe properly and don't utilize that tool to help us just manage day-to-day stress, being in traffic, dealing with a spouse or a child that's driving you insane, and just grounding with that breath. We have that tool available to us instantly, and we don't even think about it.
Nostril breathing was, when I discovered that, it was just like, oh, you could just hold one nostril or the other, and you could have like instant clarity if you're like trying to focus on a project. And if you're like feeling overly emotional, you can like close off the other nostril and you'll get back into like the not emotional zone.
Yeah, exactly. And the other one I really am a big fan of is box breathing, particularly for stressful situations, just that in for 5, hold for 5, out for 5, hold for 5. And it just do that about 5 or 10 times. And it's crazy what that can do. I'm a big golfer. And so I use it on the golf course when I've had a bad shot, just like, okay, settle into this. Don't worry about it.
I do it every night as I go to sleep. It's like I close my eyes,
Yeah.
turn all the lights out, and I box breathe for,
I love that. Yeah.
4
What
or
a
5
great thing to do.
times, and then
Yeah.
I'll get into it. It physically relaxes you.
It does. Yeah. It's scientifically proven. Like that's not just me making stuff up.
Yeah, it's just breathing. You don't have to
Yeah.
buy
Isn't that the
anything.
craziest
It's
thing?
free.
Exactly.
And it's a great tool if you're going through menopause and you get those
Mm.
hot flashes in the middle of the night and you're like, now you're awake. And what do
Yep.
you do? Okay, so you're going
Yep.
to start worrying because that's what we all do. Remember the
Yep.
box breathing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And again, this is part of why I want to coach on the menopause. And I'm a big fan of bioidentical hormone replacement because I started that before I actually went into menopause. Well, now that you're
Mhm.
speaking menopause, I went through menopause without a single hot flash, a single night sweat, because I had started supplementing with progesterone prior to that. And menopause was a breeze for me. Like as much as the perimenopause was horrific, but once I got on the bioidentical hormones, it was fabulous. It's a big thing that I'm a big proponent of.
I couldn't agree with you more. And, little things like monitoring your alcohol. I've
Big one, a big one.
I've embraced sobriety recently, but I know that alcohol really affected my sleep when I was going through menopause or when I first gotten into menopause. Um, and it took me a long time to recognize that. And you are right about the bio um,
Oh,
replacement hormones. That makes such a huge difference. And it, it it doesn't have to be an awful point in your life. It could be a great place. I am really happy that I'm through that stage of my life.
yeah,
I wouldn't want to be any other age than the age that I already am. I
yeah.
embrace being a crone and you know, it's okay.
Yeah, like it was funny because I kind of had this idea. I was like, well, am I still a woman because I don't have my cycle and all this? And then I'm like, there is so much freedom here. It's freaking awesome. And again,
The big
because
one is you never have to worry about getting pregnant.
and carrying supplies with you anywhere. Like, yeah,
Right?
gosh. But it just once there's just so many women though that don't understand or they don't see that part of it doesn't have to be so bad. Like I had terrible periods growing up. I was estrogen dominant. I had endometriosis. It was a real struggle. And again, not having a mom to advocate for me, it took me until I was 35 years old to know that I had endometriosis and had estrogen dominance and, started dealing with it at 35. And I suffered for 20 years. And so then again, these women who are suffering in menopause, and they don't realize that that's not normal. They think that just because and then the doctors are telling us that, oh, well, congratulations, you made it to this stage. This is what's going to feel like. No, we're not meant to suffer. There's something wrong if you're suffering that badly. And so, having that network of specialists, and in Canada, it's tough. Like functional doctors are hard to find here. In the States, there's way more opportunities to work with functional doctors. And my functional doctor just literally saved my life. I would look at food and gain weight. I couldn't sleep, but I was exhausted. I was losing hair. I was irritable. I was miserable. And the what was the other one? That's pretty much sums it up. Anyways, the bioidentical hormones plus nutrition, like I did go on a really good regime of supplements. Like it literally changed my life.
Yeah. It doesn't have to be horrible. And
Right.
I can relate with the whole endometriosis thing. I had endometriosis from an early age. It's probably from swimming on swim teams a lot of my life. The chlorine is really bad for that. And
Yep.
also, yeah, it was just like, it was terrible. I had so many bad experiences because of it. And I was about 30, I think I was 32 when I finally had surgery. And they were like thinking it
Oh,
was going to
yeah, me
be,
too.
nothing. And they were in there for like 5 hours cleaning stuff out.
Hey, same with me. I went down to Oregon from Canada and had this surgery that got rid of all the end of it. Like they don't in Canada, they'll take off the top, 0.5 millimeter, which is nothing. It's an eighth of an inch. And in this clinic in Oregon, they same thing, 5 hour surgery, ablated all the endometriosis throughout my body. It was everywhere. It was on my bowels. It was in my fallopian tubes. I had cysts all over. Like it was just gross. And nobody knew. We had no idea. I had all this stuff going on inside me. It's brutal.
It no internet, so you're just like at the mercy of the doctors. You go to the doctors, then they're certain when you're 16 years old that you have a venereal disease in front of your
Right?
mom. And they hospitalized me one time thinking I had colonitis. Well, no, that wasn't it. I really, it
Wow.
took 20 years for them to figure out that it was endometriosis and that they could do something about it. I didn't even know that if you took Motrin would really help with the symptoms. I was just
Mhm.
like,
Well, see, that
that,
was part of my
that
problem too.
alone
I
was just like,
Well, they put me on 1,600 milligrams of ibuprofen, which is Motrin. Like to the
yeah.
point though that I had such bad leaky gut because I was on so many drugs and nobody knew about leaky gut at the time. Make sure you eat food if you're going to take this kind of medication. And all they were doing was band-aiding the cramps. They weren't actually dealing with the root cause of this estrogen dominance. And again, 40 years ago, they weren't talking about that stuff.
They, mostly men didn't know what it
Yep.
was and didn't really care about it. But the women that suffered from it, man, I can remember one time driving. I was 16. I was driving home from someplace with my sister, who was 14 at the time, trying to tell her, if I pass out, because it was so
Oh,
painful, that this is what you need to do to get us off this freeway without dying. And it was
oh
just
my
like,
God.
it was, and I, every month. But I didn't put
Yeah,
the two and
exactly.
two together because it was usually a little bit before my periods. My periods were so irregular that I never knew when
Yeah.
they were coming. So it was just like, I didn't connect the two. I had no idea, what endometriosis was until
Mhm.
I met a doctor who said, "This is what I think you have." And I was like, "I love you so much."
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, like I said, it was over 35 years old. Like, yeah, they just gave me Advil and said, "Oh, it is, you're in pain." And then they gave me an antidepressant. That was the other part of it. Oh, well, here's a solution to all your problems. Take an antidepressant. I'm like, no, 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 no. I'm not depressed. It's not about that. Or okay, go on the pill. And because I lost my mother to breast cancer, I'm like, that's the last thing I'm ever gonna do is go on the pill. Don't ever even talk to me about that. So yeah, Western medicine is just such a challenge.
It really is. And I'm so grateful that there's, coaches like you and others and functional doctors that we can go
Yeah.
to get help with some of
Yes,
these things that
absolutely.
are causing us pain and issues in our lives, and actually get the problem solved instead of
Yeah,
just
the root.
slapping a band-aid on it.
I so agree. So agree.
And so, Traci, how can people get in touch with you?
I have a website, it's Traci Coaches. So I'm Traci with an I, tracicoaches.com. That's probably the easiest way, or my email is literally traci@tracicoaches.com. So those are probably the easiest way just because of my remote location. I do a lot of stuff over Zoom. I do it over phone calls, whatever works for people. I'm happy to be amenable that way.
And so what's the one thing you want to leave the audience with today? What do you hope they take away from our conversation?
I think one of the biggest things I've learned, I'm 53 years old, that it's just never too late to make changes. It's never too late to be seen, heard, and understood. Like, we can always start over. It's, one of my biggest inspirations is an Instagram account. Her name is Train with Joan. And at 72 years old, she decided she was going to be a fitness influencer, and she went off her blood pressure medication. She's not on bioidentical hormones. Like, she did all this stuff at 72 years old. She's now 77. And I'm like, it's never too late. We can always reinvent ourselves, and we can always strive to be better. So I think that's probably one of my biggest lessons I'd love to leave with everybody.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much for tuning in to another empowering episode of the You World Order Showcase podcast. We hope you've enjoyed hearing from our incredible life, health, and transformational coaches who are making a profound impact on the world. Remember, change begins with you, and you have the power to transform your life and the lives of others. If you want to take that next step and unlock your true potential, visit thecoachesalchemist.com, where you can find the 3 ways we can help you for free to spin your talent into gold with clarity, a system, and a plan. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button so you never miss an inspiring episode. And if you enjoyed today's show, we'd greatly appreciate it if you could leave us a review on your favorite podcast platform. Your feedback means the world to us and helps us reach more people with our positive message. Stay connected with us on social media for updates, behind-the-scenes content, and upcoming guest announcements. You can find us on Facebook at the You World Order, or simply visit thecoachesalchemist.com.